This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you an exclusive interview with Satoshi Sasaki, Officer in Charge, International Labour Organization, Decent Work Team for South Asia and Country Office, India. Interviewer is Chandrani Banerjee, journalist.
We are here with the Deputy Director of International Labour Organization in India, who also happens to be Officer in Charge of ILO, International Labour Organization. Welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you very much.
We will talk about various issues. Of course, G20 is on top. So, how will the G20 summit is going to help the skilled and semi-skilled employees? What are your views?
The labour ministers for the meeting of the G20 discussed much more on the addressing the issues of the skills gaps this time in this year. And particularly they are coming up with the idea of organizing the mapping of the global skills gap, which has the two different issues included in it. One is that they would like to extend the national statistical data of the skills. That is at the moment having the ILO OECD skills for jobs or the database to be extended to more G20 countries. That's one thing they have decided. And another thing is that international reference of the skills means that for the certification occupations by skills and qualifications will be organized in different countries, in G20 countries, so that it can contribute to the growth for the country recognition of the skills that can be used in the different countries. So these are the things the G20, the labor ministers for this time discussed in the meeting in India. And obviously these are contributing to help the job seekers for the cross-borders, trying to identify what sort of skills that they need if they are to hired in different countries. So this is the things that what is going on now. And for this, for example, the ILO has been developing the South Asia qualifications for reference for the framework, and that is for the migrant workers in different countries in South Asia. So that's the starting point in this country that can be extended to different countries in the future.
I would come back to G20 again. You agree that the G20 is going to help to create job opportunities for the specially abled employees?
Yes. Most important thing is that the labor ministers meeting of the G20 has been working on the promote inclusive, fair and sustainable employment for people with disabilities.
Right.
This is for the contributing to sustainable development goals.
Right, sir.
And also the United Nations, the Convention on the Rights of the People with Disabilities, known as the CPRD.
Right.
So with this and particularly, as you know, the G20 have been organizing every year. And the last year, 2022, the labor ministers meeting has agreed on action plan on accelerating and monitoring G20 principle for labor market integration for people with disabilities.
Yes, sir.
And the action plan, actually the report will be published for every 4 years and reported to the G20, the labor ministers meeting.
So what special measures that were discussed or planned for the betterment of labor relations?
What is on the labor labor relations issues. What is important is that among the G20 countries, they have agreed and reaffirmed the commitment to promoting the social dialogue. Social dialogue, as you know, that the ILO's for the principle is for the maintaining and for the promoting the tripartite for the dialogue, which will consist of the government, employers and workers organization. This is the basis for having the good for the social dialogue and discussing about what are the labor issues and as to how they can solve the existing issues. But importantly, in this discussion, it should be involved by the employers and workers organizations.
So, huge workforce travel from India to different countries. So, what are the measures that can be, taken to ensure that they are not exploited? In the sense, is there any added measure that the G20 countries are planning to offer to the workforce, which will kind of beneficial for the workforce?
Yeah, for example, ILO's for having the project for the supporting the countries to establish for the good basis for collecting information by the migrant workers to go out of the country. What sort of the labor rights they should have. For example, the important thing is that they should have the good the contracts so that their labor rights should be protected. But at the same time, for labor migration issues, for the one thing important is for as to how they can understand the skills gaps. What sort of skills required for them to work as the workers in different countries, and what sort of the skills are needed in these countries.
Okay.
So filling this for the skills gap. For example, the G20 Labor Ministers meeting this time focused on the skills for the mapping.
Right.
That's one thing. And another very important issue for the migrant workers is the portability of the social security.
Okay.
Yeah, because they are working outside the country, as to how at the time they have a sickness, how their the medical the payment can be covered. These are still yet to be completing. So I think there's still a little bit long way to go. But now the G20 labor ministers for the meetings for the discussing as to how extend the workers working abroad can be covered by the different for the social security. And these social security the systems, the schemes can be portable in the sense that it can be applicable in different countries.
There is a huge problem of no jobs across borders. Are G20 countries focusing on trying to work on a forward plan in the sense there will be more jobs after G20? You think that is going to happen?
Yeah, this is a very important issue, and it's relevant for different the working groups of G20. And most important thing at the moment, of course, this is very politically sensitive issue as well. And what I can say at the moment is that with the Indian for the presidency, for the G20, they can brought it to the initiating the discussions.
Okay.
But I should also say that this need to be continued.
Okay.
So now we are coming towards the more starting of the continuous for the discussions.
Okay, so you wanted to say that not only G20, it should be a continuous dialogue.
Yes.
To work towards it and to come up with a forward plan which will keep improving by the day.
Yes.
Pandemic closed many job opportunities. You agree?
Yeah.
So how will that be tackled involving the G20 countries?
I would like to make 3 points here.
Yeah.
The first point is the importance of universal coverage of social protection.
Okay.
During the COVID for the period, many people see that the job losses, but at the same time, the people coming back from the abroad to back to India, for example, and back to the rural area, how their social protection, at the time they lose the jobs, how their income can be secured.
Okay.
So I think one of the critically important thing is for the extending the social protection to all the workers, so that any time for this kind of the disaster happens, the people can be well protected. And the United Nations, the Secretary General recently mentioned about the proposed the United Nations Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection for the Transition. On this, the Labor Ministers meeting of the G20 came up with the 2 of 3 outcomes are related to this. One is the extension of the Social Security. Another one is with the financing Social Security. So with this, I think it is important that the G20 will continue to discussing on this issue. And second point I want to make is that the elimination of child labor and forced labor. With the loss of job opportunities in many countries, including India, we could see the surge of child labor.
Absolutely.
But as to how this sort of things can be minimized or eliminated, this is the critically important the issue that we need to talk about. And last point I want to make is for the transition, particularly on the digital platforms. For example, the involvement of the gig and the platform or the workers. You see during the COVID-19 period, these the gig workers helped us a lot. Yeah, like at home, we are waiting for the delivery of the food, and these were delivered by the gig workers. But as to how we can protect for the gig and the platform workers is the big issues coming up now. And the G20 leaders were working on this and the condition for the gig and the platform workers. So ILOs were expecting to have the good discussion on this issue in the coming International Labour Conference. So these things we should continue to discuss, and the G20 is a good for the platform to discuss.
Is there any planning of ILO to organize joint workshops for the employees to make them aware of the workers' welfare and their rights? It's an area which is always not many workers or labor force aware of. So is there any plan of organizing joint workshops by ILO?
Yeah, ILO as a principle, we are very much based on the tripartism.
Right.
And the promoting for the decent work through social dialogue. This is for the essential for the issue of the ILO. This is why ILO is here on this planet.
Okay.
And the workers' rights is for what we are seeking for. But at the same time, it should be backed by the sustainable and competitive enterprises.
Absolutely. Yeah.
These things are the back to back.
Yes. Yes.
And to realize the workers' rights and sustainable and competitive enterprises, ILO's having the decent work country program, which is the strategy for 5 years among the tripartite constituents, employers, workers, and government, together with ILO.
Okay.
And in this, we have this is a joint the strategy paper and planning paper for us. And under this, we are agreed what sort of action we should take on promoting the workers for the rights.
Okay, to make them aware.
Yeah, and of course, this should be recognized by the employers' organizations. For example, recently, I think 2 weeks ago, I participated in the National Conference on the Employees' Relations organized by the Employers' Federation of the South India. EFSI is the one of the employers' organization in India and extensively working in the southern part of the country.
Okay.
And they discuss focusing on the employees' relationship. And this is participated by the corporate executives and also the HR practitioners or the managers.
Okay.
And discussing as to how they can improve the working condition of the workers, which is contributing to the enterprise development as well. And the ILOs were engaged and were providing the technical support in this sort of event so that we can work together on promoting the workers' rights.
Right. And you think that workshop within G20 countries would also help to better utilize job description, would be more specific for the labor force?
Yeah, of course, the most important, the basic problem in many countries, including India, is the existence of the huge informal economy. Informal enterprises, in many cases, not using, for example, the labor contract, which clearly describe what is the labor rights of the workers and having the agreement with the employers. But this sort of document is in many cases lacking. So ILOs promoting the formalization of enterprises and the workers themselves, and trying to establish based on the labor laws, and both sides, employers and workers, having the good understanding what's their agreement as to how the workers contributing to the enterprises. And this is the way how the ILO can promote the employment for the relationships and trying to formalizing the employment relationship.
Course that ILO has recently started in a joint venture for the students to understand labor relations, industrial relations. How far you think such courses help?
Most important thing is that through these courses, we are raising awareness and sensitizing the world of work issues among the students, but also the HR professionals, the government administrators, and also the trade union leaders. And we can focusing on the better labor relationship, but also the effective the organizing of the social dialogue. And to organize this the training the courses in India, we are working with the institutions like the B.B. Giri National Labour Institute, Kerala Institute of Labour and Employment.
Okay.
But also we are organizing training the programs with the employers and workers organizations. And sometimes we are sending the training our counterparts to the international training courses organized by the ILO's International Training for the Center in Italy. So these are the different ways of organizing training courses to make them aware of the world work issues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to an exclusive interview with Satoshi Sasaki, Officer in Charge, International Labour Organization Decent Work Team for South Asia and Country Office India. Interviewer was Chandrani Banerjee, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani.